For all those who appreciate the work that we're doing here on Standing for Truth, please hit that subscribe button because we are just getting started. Okay, guys, looks like we are live for this incredibly exciting debate. It's the big round two between TJump and Bill Morgan. And tonight we are debating creation or evolution. What is the better explanation? We've got two seasoned debaters here. TJump, I think he's had about 1,000 debates. And Bill Morgan, you're no stranger to debates as well, which is why this is going to be one to remember. So I am pumped. Before we go over the format and before we get into the actual debate itself, let's break the ice. Even though both Tom and Bill are no stranger to debates, everybody really knows who you are. It's always a good way to break the ice. Give a little introduction of yourselves. Who are you? If people were to go over to your channel, what are they going to find? What are they to expect, for example? So why don't we start with Tom? It's been a while since you've been here, so I appreciate you giving us your time for tonight's debate. You are muted. Just make sure you unmute yourself. And once again, thanks for being here, Tom. What's going on?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate the invite as always. I'm TJump on my YouTube channel. I do lots of boring things like sleeping, mostly playing video games, and occasionally talk about stuff. Mostly I just sell bathtubs. That is my occupation on YouTube. So you can see my selling bathtubs on YouTube. But yeah, thanks again. Appreciate the invite as always.
Awesome. My pleasure. Good to have you here. And Bill, once again, thanks for being here as always. Thanks for giving us your time. This is exciting. What's going on? How's life been, Bill? Brief introduction.
Well, life is great. I sell a little shower rings and bathtubs. I got all different sizes on my website if you're interested.
You guys could work together.
It's planes, trains, and automobiles reference. No, I'm an old engineer. 37 years I've been doing engineering. And on my channel, I have debates and different topics about life, perhaps. Not too many things, but I got a few. And I'm a former atheist, and now I believe science glorifies and teaches that God is real.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bill. And thank you, gentlemen, for the introductions. Everybody in the chat, I know you're as excited as I am. Please make sure if you are asking a question, tag me at Standing for Truth. And that way I won't miss your question because we will have a Q&A after the concluding statements. Guys, we're going to have a fun format for the night. Okay, so I'm going to go over it real quick, and then we're going to hand it to Bill, who's going to be starting off with a 15-minute opening. So we're going to have a 15-minute opening from Bill, followed by a 5-minute rebuttal from Tom, and then a 15-minute opening statement from Tom, followed by a 5-minute rebuttal from Bill. And then we're going to have a couple rounds of cross-examinations, 5 minutes each, okay? followed by about a 20-minute discussion. We're going to keep that discussion portion more free-flowing and organic until we've exhausted the topic. We're going to end it with 5-minute closing statements from Bill and then from Tom, and then a question and answer from the audience. So once again, tag me at Standing for Truth. And enough for me. You didn't come here to see me. You came here to see the debaters, TJump and Bill Morgan. So Bill, we're going to hand it over to you. You've got 15 minutes. You start right now, right this second. I'm just kidding. So Bill, if you're looking to share your screen, let me know. I'll share it. And everybody in the chat, also, let us know how the audio is, the video is. Make sure we're not having any issues. And okay. I know you gentlemen, I know, Bill, you usually time yourself. What I'll do is I'll give you a 1-minute warning, and that'll give you the necessary time to kind of wind things down. So, Bill, whenever you're ready to share screen, just pop it up there, and I'll.
Okay, so you're going to do it all on your end?
Yeah, as long as you click the share screen, then I can approve it for you, and then you can go through your slides.
All right. All right, it should be ready.
Nope, nothing popped up yet. So Bill, make sure. So when you click the share, the fourth button for me at least, I think it's the same for you.
Oh, there it is. Yeah,
you got it.
Now does it work? Is that working, Donnie?
No. So make sure you click the box. You'll see the box pop up, and then another share button will pop. It'll highlight blue. Yeah, there we go. We got it. Leaving us in suspense there. Debate canceled. We can't share the screen. So, Bill, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, and let's begin. Thank you, Donnie, and thank you, Tom, for the debate. If people want to contact me, they can call me or email me, and check out my YouTube channel. Okay, the foundation of science is, drum roll, please, observation. The key to science is observation. If you're seeking truth, it should be based upon what is observed. So in this debate, we're going to decide, hopefully, which side, creation or evolution, is supported by observation. Now, evolutionists will often say creationists don't make testable predictions. I would disagree with that. So I would like to begin with creation testable prediction number 1. And that's apes make apes. Prediction number 2, people make people. 3, giraffes make giraffes. Don't worry, this won't go on forever. And 4, bacteria make bacteria. And we could go on and on and on, but those are testable predictions made by creationists. Apes make apes, people make people. That is what we observe. That is what we see. If you're looking hard enough, you'll see it trillions of times a day that bacteria make bacteria, giraffes make giraffes, etc. This belief is not a religious belief. It is supported by genetics, biochemistry, taxonomy, zoology, paleontology, biology. All of the ologies support this. Now, evolutionists believe that blue whales are related to grasshoppers. Evolutionists believe all life is related to each other. I do not believe blue whales are related to grasshoppers. Evolutionists believe that ants are related to ants. That's Ant B from Mayberry RFD days for you young people. And evolutionists believe bacteria is related to Beethoven. Beethoven is not too crazy about that. I do not believe this is a scientific belief. I believe it is a philosophical and fantasy. There are 8 billion people on Earth. What do we observe? They all came from people. When they reproduce, they make people. These are predictable observations by creationists. There's 1 million apes on Earth. What do we observe? They came from apes and they make apes. 8 billion people, 1 million apes. What do we not observe? 0 ape men. Where are the transitional forms? They are not alive. Nobody has seen this with their eyes. Nobody has observed it. You can trust your eyes that people only make people. The audience, you can decide which one is science, which one is fantasy. Do you think Bacteria to Beethoven is fantasy or science? I believe it's fantasy. Believing that bacteria makes bacteria, I believe that is sound science. If you think bacteria plus time plus mutations could result in a human, you're contradicting biochemistry and genetics. Your philosophy is overwhelming your science. My life story, real quickly. I've loved science my entire life. As an engineer, I love it, and I enjoy learning different fields of science. When I was 14 years old, my biology teacher put this on the wall and taught the students as if it were fact that humans are related to ape men. I had no problem trusting and believing him. He's the teacher. So I said, wow, the Bible is a bunch of hooey. And I rejected it and thought it was an anti-scientific book because my teacher said we came from ape men. Very important. What are these? Ladies and gentlemen, these are cartoon drawings. This is not observational empirical science. These are drawings. When I learned how lousy the fossils actually were at the age of 26, I investigated it more and more and concluded that the theory of evolution is nothing but stories and drawings. It's not observational science. It's not genetics. It's not biochemistry. So a question of the day. Why do the textbooks only have drawings as evidence for the theory of evolution and not photographs? You do not see. You see computer animated drawings. You don't see photographs because there's nothing to photograph. Here are two science questions that creationists love, but freak out non-creationists. As you can tell, I love dogs. Question for Tom. Matter and energy. How did it originate? What is your best explanation? And is your explanation scientific? This is a creation evolution debate. I hope you attempt to answer this and not avoid it. A creation testable prediction is matter and energy is neither created nor destroyed. I do not believe matter and energy is created or destroyed in the natural world. Creation testable prediction. In a closed system, such as our universe, which contains all the matter, all the energy that can do work will convert to energy that cannot do work. This is called the second law of thermodynamics. It's not some idea by Bill. This is my old textbook from the 70s. I'm very old. An exact quote by the authors of the thermodynamics book. The authors see the second law of thermodynamics as man's description of the prior and continuing work of a creator, who also holds the answer to the future destiny of man and the universe. Now, Tom, to reiterate, I'm not asking if you know how matter and energy originated. What is your best explanation? Another creation testable prediction. Life cannot come from non-life. Living things only come from previously living things. This is supported by the law of biogenesis. This is supported by the cell theory. And this is supported by our eyeballs. Every time we see new life, it comes from existing life. This is not a religious belief. So, Tom, what is your best explanation of how life originated? I'm not asking if you know. I'm asking for your best explanation. And is it a scientific explanation? This is a creation debate, and this is a part of the creation argument. Okay? So, Tom, suppose you were placed in charge of an important project. You could hire 8 billion people. Everybody on the planet is working for you. You have unlimited funding for your project, Tom. You can use every laboratory in the entire world. They're all going to be working for you to solve this problem. Could you and every person on the earth design and build a living dog? This is a sincere question, not a snide question at all. Could all the humans with all their gathered IQs build a living dog? Now, God does not make things. God makes systems. Systems are made up of components, and they're made up of components. In engineering, in a system, if one thing doesn't work, the whole thing doesn't work. In a dog, if the respiratory system doesn't work, nothing works. If the circulatory doesn't work, nothing works. You need many, many systems for a dog to survive. And there's just an example of some of the parts of the system. Living systems are a house of cards. If one thing breaks down, the whole thing breaks down. And as a designer, I know everything's got to work or else you're going to get chewed out. In life, you're going to be dead. So, Tom, we're going to break it down. We'll give you one project. Here are a list of some of the things required for a living dog, and we're going to put you in charge of the hair. Get ready for 56 million reasons that creation is true. How many hair follicles per square inch are on a dog? 15,000. There's my dog. Guess how many hair follicles she has? We did the math. 14 million hair follicles on an average sized dog. Let's look at one hair follicle. Decide if it's design or chance. Creation prediction. Hair follicles will be very complex. This is a system. It's a very complex system for only one hair follicle. Every hair follicle needs its own tiny muscle that you would have to design, Tom. 14 million tiny muscles in my dog. Every hair follicle has one little pipe to supply blood from an artery. 14 million little arteries have to be designed and built. There's a close-up of an artery, and that's a design. I used to design pipes quite a bit. They're not that easy to design. Every hair follicle has a vein for returning the blood. That's 14 million more. And they meet with a capillary. If we had more time, we could talk about the complexity of capillaries. Every hair has an oil gland. That's 14 million oil glands. The dog is shocked. Wait, it can make oil? Yes, it is. Take a guess. Is this oil simple or complex? Creation, testable prediction. The oil in dogs will be very complex. And they are. The complexity never stops. The deeper you dig, the more and more complex things get. Harvard Medical Center agrees. The oil, which is called sebum, is a complex mixture of fatty acids, sugar, waxes, and other natural chemicals. So what's the better explanation for the 14 million oil glands in my dog? Is it from a nature with an IQ of 0 or from creator with an IQ of infinity? I believe a creator of infinity is required to design this. So you add 14 million, 14 million, 14 million. There's 56 million reasons to believe in creation, just in the hair. So my dog has 56 million designs. There's 900 million dogs worldwide. Just for hair on a dog, you're at 51 quintillion designs that are beyond man's ability and comprehension. And that's only for the hair on the dog. In humans, there's 3 locations that our skin does not have sebaceous glands. Where are they? The palms, the bottom of our feet, the lower lip. What a fantastic design by a fantastic designer. So what's the point? We could be saying, well, my science is better than yours. And then Tom could say, no way, my science is better than yours. And Donnie has had hundreds of debates. So I thought about it. I'm going to take it just a little bit direction, but it's very important to the creation versus evolution debate. This is my 11th debate, and every one of my opponents has been very polite, kind, and respectful, and I thank them for that. So I politely ask my opponents and other evolutionists and atheists. So I say this, it is my opinion your arguments are anti-science. But more importantly, it is my experience that the fruits of your atheism often lead to this. I do a lot of evangelizing. I talk to this literally over thousands of young people in the past 30 years. I know what they're coming from. I know what they're about. And that's why I'm passionate about creation and evolution. There are many teenagers that are suicidal, depressed, etc. The reasons these people give me, and the teens will tell me about it, are all of these things. And I would be willing to say everybody watching this debate has felt each one of these at least once in their life. What do all of these things have in common? They result in real, serious pain. Someone might say, hey, that kid's got a car and a nice bed. Well, that's not dealing with the pain in their life. I say this with respect, but I believe it to be 100% true. Atheism eliminates the best way to deal with real pain. We're not just debating science here, we're debating worldviews. So how should people deal with the pain in their life? I would love to share. I share 3 or 4 times a week with people about this. How to deal with pain? You can smile through the tears. The pain is real, but you can have peace during the pain. How so? You can do this. Dear God, thank you for my eyes. Thank you for my ears. Thank you for my hands. Thank you for my feet. Thank you for my beating heart. You are so good to me. Problems are real. Pain is real, but the pain can be overwhelming if you don't know how to deal with it, and it's all that you think of 7 days a week. I encourage people to call a timeout and be thankful to God for what they do have. Atheism eliminates this source of relieving pain, of being thankful for what you do have. Freddie Mercury of Queen, I love their music. In the movie, he had a huge party. He had friends, he had sex, he had drugs, he had everything going, money. He was miserable. He said a quote in the movie that was very good. He said, everybody in the human condition needs anesthesia. Everybody has pain. We need to learn how to deal with the pain. Alcohol can make a person happy for about 2 hours. It doesn't cure the pain. Drugs can make you happy for 2 hours. Any sin can make you happy for a couple of hours, but they can also destroy you. The way to deal with pain is not by destroying your life. It's by being thankful to the Creator. This drunk driver in Texas did not plan on killing somebody, but he did. Okay, thank you. He did end up killing somebody. I say this with respect to atheists. I'm not saying you're planning on ruining the life and hope and peace of people, but the fruits of your beliefs are doing this. I meet hundreds and hundreds of kids who are hopeless because of an atheist worldview, and they're thrilled to know that they can be thankful to the God who made them. This is off the internet. There's the resource. People that believe in God have a significantly less suicide attempt rate. Because of time, I got to buzz through that. Oh, so this topic has more meaning than just a discussion of scientific views. It has the potential ramifications of having a life of truth, joy, hope, and peace, or doubt, fear, hopelessness, and sorrow. It's a very deadly seed. My purpose is saying this. Tom and anybody else.
It up, Bill?
Yeah, this is my last slide. Tom and anybody else can believe in anything they want. It's the American way. Freedom of speech, freedom of thought. But if you are telling innocent minds that there is no God, you're spreading something that is poisonous and destructive to them. And I am opposed to that. Okay. I ran a little bit late, but thank you for your time.
No problem. I appreciate it, Bill. Thanks for your opening statement. Bill looks like he went over about 35, 40 seconds. So, Tom, take as much time as you need. If you got to go over just a little bit as well, go ahead. But before we get into your opening, Tom, looks like we're jumping into your 5-minute rebuttal. So whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Is that right, Bill? We're doing 5-minute rebuttal after the openings?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You need time to prepare. If you want to get your thoughts or act together, you can.
No, that's fine. So the only evidence you presented in your opening was hair is really complicated. What's more likely, nature with an IQ of 0 or God or infinite IQ? That's an argument from ignorance fallacy. You didn't actually provide any evidence for one or the other. All you said was, here is a problem. What causes a complicated hair follicle? And then you just used an intuition. You said, well, I think it's intuitively more likely that it was made by a big, powerful mind. But you didn't provide any reasons or evidence at all for why you would make one conclusion over the other. That's not evidence. That's an argument from ignorance, which is pretty much just one of the basic fallacies we know doesn't count as evidence for anything. You didn't present anything else that would even qualify as evidence in your argument. The fact, appeal to consequence fallacy, the fact that atheists commit suicide more, which is like 40 per 100,000 or something like that, which is not really that huge or significant, 0.00 something percent. Like, Okay, that's not, even if 99% of atheists committed suicide, that wouldn't be evidence that your hypothesis is true. The consequences of an idea has nothing to do with the truth of the idea, so it's also not evidence. None of the predictions you made were actually predictions. Like the pre in the prediction means you have to predict it. Means you have to make a conclusion about an expectation we don't know yet, something that we haven't seen. So stating things we have already seen isn't a prediction, it's just stating things we already know. So apes make apes is not a prediction. A prediction, you have to predict something we don't know yet. It's like predicting the sun will rise tomorrow. Like, oh wow, what an amazing hypothesis you have. You're going to predict things that we already know. It's not a prediction. That's why in science we require novel testable predictions, not just stating things we already know, like the sun will rise tomorrow, not evidence. You asked how was matter and energy created and what is the origin of life? Those have nothing to do with evolution. They're literally not related to the topic of evolution at all. I mean, I'm happy to answer them, and they're better than the theistic one, and significantly it's just matter and energy weren't created. Energy has always existed. Like your very silly second question was, you admitted matter. You asked how was matter and energy created, then you said inner matter was not created. Well, that's a contradiction. Like you got to pick one or the other. Either it was created or it was not created. So if matter and energy can't be created, that means God can't create it either. It's been there forever, and which is the naturalist hypothesis. Energy has been there forever. If energy hadn't been there forever, God couldn't exist because he has to have energy to do stuff. Life cannot come from non-life is a composition division fallacy. Like walls cannot come from non-walls. Well, we build them with bricks, and bricks aren't walls, so obviously they can. So composition division fallacy, no evidence there. You also asked how life originated. The RNA world hypothesis is the best one right now. It is significantly better than the God hypothesis because it does make novel testable predictions, which are testable and have been confirmed in many cases, which is real evidence. It makes a prediction about something we don't know yet, does an experiment, confirms the prediction. It doesn't just say, here's something we already know. Apes come from apes. It doesn't do that. It predicts something we don't know, and it gets it right. That's real evidence. I think that covers everything in your opening. I'll conclude there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tom. That was 5 minutes. You got about a minute and a half to spare. So according to the format you guys agreed to, it's like we are then going right into an introduction from yourself, Tom, which you've got about 15 and a half minutes. Of course, you don't need to take all the time. Whatever you don't take, as always, we throw into either the question and answer or discussion portion. So go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so my opening would be that in the debate between creation and evolution, the problem is that creationists don't understand how evidence work. If you just go to the wiki for intelligent design, the first sentence is intelligence design is a pseudoscience, and there's a reason for this. In science, the foundation of science isn't observation, because we can't observe many things in science. Neutrons, gluons, protein, neutrinos. There's all kinds of things we can't directly observe in science. We don't need to. We just need indirect observation. It's fine. So if you make a prediction, you say, hey, if there's this thing that we can't directly see, a neutrino, it has these properties, then if we create energy in this one location, we'll see it. We'll see little bubbles going through this like fluid or whatever in these certain conditions. And if that happens, then, oh, the neutrinos are there. So we made these predictions that if neutrinos exist, this event will happen. We see the event, neutrinos happen, even though we didn't observe the neutrino. You don't need to directly observe anything in science because you have indirect observation. You just need to make a novel testable prediction to say, if my hypothesis is true, here's something that we don't know yet, and we'll expect to see it under these conditions. And if you discover it, that's good reason to believe that whatever you're saying exists does in fact exist. And that's exactly what we have for evolution in every single case. Arguing that it's impossible is not evidence. Like many people have claimed many things are impossible. Einstein's theory of general special relativity was claimed to be impossible by many philosophers because space isn't a physical object, so it can't bend. So space-time can't bend, doesn't exist. Therefore, it's impossible for Einstein's model to be true. No one cared. No one cares about someone saying it's impossible. People claimed it was impossible for heavier than air flight, that computers will never be able to beat man at chess or Go or Jeopardy, that all kinds of things people claim will never go to space. People claim things are impossible all the time. They're wrong. all the time. It's never evidence to claim something is impossible. It's just an argument from ignorance, just saying that you can't understand how this would be possible. And your understanding doesn't matter to the truth. It's again, not evidence. To have evidence, you need to have novel testable predictions. You need to take your model, say, if my model is true, here are some predictions we can expect to see that we don't know yet, novel, and then do an experiment to discover them. And that's what creationists have never done. They don't have novel testable predictions. They just have post hoc explanations, post predictions. They explain things we already know, fill in a new hypothesis. But the problem is that you can do this with anything. You can say, every observation we have in the world, everything we see right now could be explained by us all being created 5 minutes ago by magical leprechauns. Every single observation we could. The sun being rising every day, we can predict that. We can predict dogs will come from dogs, apes will come from apes. Every single fact about the world we can predict under this hypothesis that leprechauns created the world 5 minutes ago or 6 minutes ago. Maybe it was magical rabbits, or maybe it was wizards, or aliens just created our brains in a vat and simulated all this stuff that we're seeing and it's all fake. You can make up infinitely many hypotheses to explain all of the past data. But if you want a hypothesis to be indicated, you need to predict something we don't know yet, a novel prediction, and then discover it. That's what real evidence looks like. That's why everyone in biology accepts evolution. That's why everyone in geology accepts the world was not 6,000 years ago, was not created 6,000 years ago. Real evidence is not just the ability to make up a post hoc explanation, but the ability to predict some knowledge about the future we don't have yet and get it right. So apes come from apes, not a prediction. Life coming from non-life, life can only come from life, not a prediction. You have to predict something new. Like me predicting the sun will rise tomorrow is not going to be evidence of my hypothesis the spaghetti monster is real. I can say, the spaghetti monster predicts that the sun will rise tomorrow. Like, wow, what an amazing prediction. You've predicted something that we can literally watch and have known for a long time. It's clearly not evidence. That's why Einstein made these new predictions. He said, if my model is correct, we'll see this new feature of reality called bending spacetime with these new instruments and these new tests. And guess what? We got it right. We discovered this new thing, which then defeated everybody who said it was impossible. So this fundamental misconception of creationism and intelligent design is that they think that if they say it's impossible in enough ways, that'll somehow count as evidence for their hypothesis, which it doesn't. Like if you have two hypotheses, A and B, and you just say B is impossible, that isn't evidence for A, because A could also be impossible, or B could be actually be possible and you just got it wrong. Like the fact that you claim it's impossible doesn't count as anything. You need positive evidence to show something is possible, not contrary evidence to show it's impossible. Like if I have a hypothesis of a round square and your argument is round squares are impossible, therefore it's wrong, and I make testable predictions about reality about this round square, like the light will curve around the sun at a specific rate if we measure it, and we test it and measure it and see that light does curve around the sun at a specific rate, I win, you lose. It doesn't matter how impossible you think the hypothesis may be. I made the predictions that we didn't know yet about reality. That's what real evidence looks like. So my hypothesis wins no matter how impossible you think it may be. So any of these kind of impossible arguments are all arguments from ignorance or arguments from incredulity, and that's essentially all creationists have, is that it's really hard to understand how that could happen because it's really complex and I can't understand it. That's not evidence. Like to have evidence, you need to actually take your hypothesis, do real work in the world, and make predictions about things we don't know yet and get it right. And until you can do that, you have nothing. You just have arguments from ignorance. And I'll conclude there.
Awesome. Thanks so much there, Tom. That means we are handing it over to Bill. You have your 5-minute rebuttal. As always, when it comes to the rebuttal rounds, I got to be a little bit more strict in terms of time. So you have 5 minutes. I'll start the clock on your first word. I'll give you a 1-minute warning, and then we'll wrap it up right at 5 minutes. So, Bill, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a philosophy versus science debate where Tom is saying, well, according to this definition, if the definition isn't right, your belief is wrong. Well, those are predictions about the offspring because we haven't seen them yet. And you have a definition of evidence that satisfies you. Well, we've got so much evidence, trillions and trillions of pieces of evidence. Are we going to go with words and definitions or scientific empirical evidence? Studying how a system works. Please explain how a hair follicle would evolve, a cell, etc. So we'll go through it. He said I only produced the hair, but then he did admit I brought up thermodynamics. Tom said he believes in eternal energy. I don't know. I'm not being condescending if he's heard of entropy. Entropy is a function of time, and I do not know of anyone who believes in an eternal universe. Okay, he's glossed right over biogenesis and the cell theory that life only comes from life. If it doesn't fit his philosophical definition, he dismissed that as well. But that's something that he should address. I introduced genetics, biochemistry, taxonomy, zoology, etc. That's what we observe, and a definition cannot wave those away. And the design argument is a fine argument. Just because it's incredible doesn't mean it wasn't a design. The deeper we dig into designs and DNA and the cell, the more and more complex they get, which makes the atheist position more and more untenable. So again, he talked about predict, almost went to the Latin on that. Well, we don't know that yet, but what we don't know the predictions that an ape's going to have an ape. But Tom, when you fall in love and get married, I predict you're going to have human beings with 46 chromosomes. He talked about the RNA world, and it's not a quiz show, but I wonder how much he knows about this. RNA, does RNA need proteins? Does RNA need energy to reproduce? When RNA is reproduced in the lab, are they adding chemicals to it, or is just the RNA? There's so much more to life than just the RNA world. We can talk about that. He talked about things you can only directly observe, but then he talked about neutrinos. The effects of things can be observed, and that's scientific. Science is based on observation. The effects of neutrinos is a scientific process. He talked about, and I got to share a screen. Can I get an extra second or two? Donnie? Can I share the screen without losing any time? Hello?
I was giving you the thumbs up, Bill. I
it.
was on mute. So
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. He said all biologists and all geologists believe either in evolution or an old Earth. That's just patently not true, and I'm sure he knows that, but he talks about consensus, okay? People will say the consensus is that the theory of evolution is true. Let's go back to 1979 and see what consensus can do. George Washington was very ill. What did they do? Bloodletting. The consensus of all the great minds was take as much blood out of him as we can. What was the result? A tombstone, 1799. Talking more about consensus, if you're in Egypt in 1550 BC and had an earache, the consensus was cow dung, okay? If you cut your finger, they can fix that. The Egyptians, the consensus was donkey dung, okay? Question authority, because my question to Tom, if you're just going to go with consensus for your whole life, in 1850, would you be a creationist? Because that was the consensus at the time. Don't worry about peer pressure. Don't worry about consensus. Worry about facts, evidence, observation, design, thermodynamics, biochemistry. All speak in support of the creation position. Let's just talk about the systems real quick as my time ticks down. My dog is a system. Her follicles are a system, but the follicles are useless without a digestive system, a circulatory system, a nervous system, a muscular system. I would like Tom to try to begin to explain how he would design 14 million tiny muscles to control the hair. Could he and the entire Earth, a combined IQ of 800 billion people working on designing a dog, could you build a living dog? Okay, my time just ran out, and I thank you very much.
Well, okay, and you did have a couple seconds to spare just because we gave you a few extra seconds for your screen share. That being said, Bill, thanks for your rebuttal.
I'll take those couple
that
extra seconds. Donnie, can I have
yeah, if
5
you want
more
to wrap
seconds?
up your points, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes,
so
go ahead.
Tom,
Wrap up your points, Bill.
Tom, if you and your design team could make an entire living dog, you got to make a female dog as well. And good luck with that, my friend. But thank you.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for both your opening statements and both your rebuttals. We are now moving into the cross exam. So everybody's favorite part of a debate, the cross exams and the discussion. So it looks like we are starting with Bill, who is going to be firing questions at Tom for 5 minutes. I'll start the timer on your first question. And then we'll throw it over to Tom to ask you questions for 5 minutes, Bill. So the floor is yours, gentlemen.
Okay, I guess I get to go first. Tom, why do you believe in the RNA world as the best explanation for the origin of life?
Novel testable predictions.
Please tell me.
Novel testable predictions.
Great. What have you observed that made you convinced this is a good explanation?
I'm just going to pause it. I'm just going to pause real quick. Bill, if you wanted to take I think your timer was still going off, or maybe it.
It is. Sorry about that.
We don't want to be hearing that for the next. So take your. I've paused the time, so no worries. No worries.
It's a new timer. Can you hear it? Hold on.
Only very faintly now. the timer that won't stop.
You won't be able to hear it. Okay, well that gave Tom some work out. All right, so we'll start over. Hey Tom, what novel predictions have you seen in the RNA world hypothesis that made you say that's how life originated?
Several dozen of them. They're all listed in the article First Life, the Search for the First Replicator by Michael Marshall in the New Scientist article. They go through a list of all the different progresses made in the RNA world hypothesis where things we didn't know about were finally discovered, starting with RNA enzymes to RNA replicators to self-replicating molecules. It just goes through a whole list of them.
Okay, do you know what an enzyme is?
Sure.
What is it?
Biological function. Like, what is this?
No, it's not. It's a protein. You're starting with RNA. And I say this with respect. It's not a quiz show. But, Tom, RNA needs proteins to reproduce. And you can't start with RNA.
Is there a question in there?
Yeah, I asked you if you knew what you said RNA enzymes, and an enzyme is a protein, but you're starting with just the RNA.
That's okay.
Wait, let me finish. Life is a system. There's many components, and you're starting with the RNA world. So you want to start with RNA and proteins, okay?
No. I never said that.
You said the RNA world.
Yeah.
So you have an RNA with proteins?
Yeah, it's made of proteins. It's fine.
No. You're saying RNA is made of proteins?
It makes proteins. It is the format that makes DNA. DNA makes proteins. What is your
right? But you need proteins for the RNA to make proteins. It's a chicken and the egg conundrum for you.
No, it's not.
Okay, well, we'll move on. You believe matter is eternal.
Energy is eternal.
Okay, matter and energy are, okay, why?
Matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed.
I agree.
Energy is just the ability to do work. So if energy didn't exist, nothing could exist. Nothing could change. Change is impossible if there's no energy.
Do you know the difference between available and unavailable energy?
Yes. Thermodynamics. Right.
So energy is a function of time. Would you agree?
No.
You wouldn't. Okay. Well, no. Over time, available energy becomes unavailable energy.
Still exists.
Right. But if you believe in infinite energy, there shouldn't be any energy today because it would have decomposed.
You just contradicted yourself. So as you said, energy, usable energy goes down, but the energy is still there. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not created or destroyed. So it exists eternally. You're conflating two different topics: the energy
No.
existing and the energy being usable. Those are two separate things.
If it's a function of time, Tom, it cannot be eternal because it wouldn't exist anymore. How did we get all that available
You
energy?
just contradicted yourself. So energy,
Okay, I heard you.
usable energy, is the energy in like a potential energy state. It means it has to be able to be moved, but energy itself is still there, even
Right.
if it's not usable. So it doesn't
Right.
go anywhere. So
But,
the
okay,
energy
listen,
still
okay,
exists because it
wait,
doesn't
listen,
go anywhere.
Available energy cannot be eternal because it converts to
I didn't say
unavailable.
available energy. I didn't say. I said energy.
But
So
that's what can
energy-
do work, and you knew that. You
I
said it
didn't
earlier.
say that. No, I didn't say
Wait,
that.
don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. This is my turn to ask questions.
You're
Are
not
you
asking a
saying
question. You're misrepresenting my position. As
how
I
did we
literally
get
said, energy is eternal. I didn't say usable energy is eternal. I said
right
energy is eternal.
energy that can do work?
No,
And this-
that's not what I said. I said energy is eternal. I did not say usable energy is eternal. I said energy is eternal.
Okay, all right. Like I only have a few minutes. How did we get available energy on this planet
Vacuum states on this planet from
Right.
the sun.
or the universe? The universe,
Yeah, vacuum states.
vacuum states.
Yes.
What does that mean? Does that mean from nothing?
No, there's never a nothing.
We got available energy from what? It's eternal or from nothing?
Eternal. So,
Okay, well, it can't be.
there's a field, and there's in the field there are fluctuations called quantum fluctuations that are never ending. They don't change.
Okay, and I'd say that politely, read up on your thermodynamics and your entropy. Available energy cannot be eternal.
I'm sorry, you're ignorant of the
Actually,
field.
that's
This is
5
literally
minutes.
facts. We can observe them. It's
Okay.
called the what?
So it
Okay,
looks
well,
like we're moving
do
on
research.
to Tom. So Tom, you get 5 minutes to now ask Bill some questions. Go ahead.
What does the word novel mean?
What does the word novel mean? I'm not a philosopher or into word games. You tell me.
Means new.
Okay.
So what is a novel testable prediction?
A new prediction.
Yes. So is apes come from apes a novel testable prediction?
If they've never had children, I'd say that's a new prediction that Mr. and Mrs. Ape will have a name.
What does the word novel mean?
New.
Does predicting something we already know new?
No, they haven't had the kids yet. How do you know they're going to have apes?
Have we observed other apes coming from other apes in the past?
Yes.
Is predicting the sun will rise tomorrow a new prediction?
If it hasn't risen yet, you could say it is. But you get my point. You're not going to get nothing but an ape from an ape. And I know that doesn't fit your philosophical.
No, this has nothing to do with philosophy. This is just basic logic. So you don't understand. So if I predicted the sun will rise tomorrow, is that evidence of the spaghetti monster?
No.
Why not?
My dog will answer that for you. That's a word game. I'm not going to choose to enter
Now,
into
it's my
this.
question time. Answer the question. Why is that not evidence?
For what?
Just predicting something that we already have a basis of evidence for that we know is going to happen with high likelihood. Why is saying something we already know not evidence?
It's evidence that we have a structured, fine-tuned universe by
That's the question. Why is predicting
infinity.
something we already know not evidence of the spaghetti monster?
It's evidence of a structured, fine-tuned.
No, you're not answering the question.
Tommy.
Answer the question or concede that you've lost. Why
Oh, yeah.
is predicting something we already know not evidence of a new hypothesis?
Well, we are debating creation versus evolution.
Answer the question, Bill. It's my question time.
I am. You are predicting that bacteria can be the ancestor to a whale. I'm saying that's
Bill,
nonsense.
my question time. So the sun will rise tomorrow. This is the topic now. I predict the sun will rise tomorrow. Why can't I use that in a scientific paper of my new hypothesis of the spaghetti monster? Why will no one accept that, Bill?
Why will no one accept it about your spaghetti monster?
Or any hypothesis. I can predict any new hypothesis I want, and my evidence is the sun will rise tomorrow. Apes will come from apes. Humans will come from humans. I can make all these predictions. The grass is green. The sky is blue. I can predict everything we already know. Put it in a scientific paper. Say evidence of the spaghetti monster. Why will no one accept those as predictions?
Well, to me, that's a goofy question. You have the burden of showing bacteria is the
Bill,
ancestor
answer
to
the
a whale,
question.
but you'd rather. I don't know how to answer it.
Okay,
But
that's
this-
perfect. Perfect. Yes.
Thank you.
Great. That's
You-
exactly what I wanted to
You
hear.
have to show me how bacteria can be the ancestor to a whale.
Again, my question time, Bill. So
Okay.
The reason no one's going to accept that is because anyone can take the things we already know, say, this is a prediction of my model, and then put in any silly thing they want, like a god. No one is going to accept that in science. No one says, I can explain the stuff we already know, and that's good evidence. In science, what is the foundation of science? The real foundation is discovering new things, novel predictions that we don't know yet. So that's the apes come from apes is not novel. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows the sun is going to come tomorrow. You could ask a 4-year-old kid, they're going to be able to predict that. That's not evidence. Evidence is predicting something we don't know yet, something surprising, something that isn't knowledge already. If it's already knowledge, it's not new. So
science is knowledge.
You don't understand that predicting stuff we already know isn't evidence is a fundamental flaw in your ideology. Like, it completely undermines everything you said. Like, you don't understand why the sun will rise tomorrow isn't evidence. Like, you need to really take time to think about that. And the fact that you admitted you don't know why that isn't evidence is a big problem. I'm happy to conclude there. I'm good.
Okay. Well, you're skillfully avoiding how bacteria is the ancestor to a well.
This is very good. Time. This is a question.
Okay,
what
we're going to do since okay, so now we're going to move it to Bill. Now you have, this is cross-exam round 2. So Bill, whenever you're ready, you got 5 minutes to fire questions at TJump. Go ahead.
Okay, real quick. Science is about knowledge and observation, not fanciful predictions. So TJump, what is your best evidence that whales are related to bacterium?
They're made of the same stuff.
They're made of the same stuff. Please elaborate why you think that means they're related.
Since they're both made of DNA, it's like if we see a limestone stalactite and we say, oh, look, there's a big pile of stalactite, and oh, look, there's a drop of stuff that falls on it and leaves little residue, and it'll build up over time. They're probably related. So since they're both made of DNA, and we can see changes in DNA, very small ones over time, and we can make predictions about those changes, that certain species are going to have different markers in those DNA across different timescales, and we can see those markers and see patterns in those markers among different locations, say, oh, these kinds of animals have these kinds of patterns, and these kinds of animals have these.
Okay, my question. Okay, beautiful speech. What have you observed to believe that bacterium is the ancestor to a whale?
The same thing I just said. So if we see DNA and we see patterns in the DNA and we see special localized patterns in this subgroup over here and this localized patterns in this subgroup over here, and they both share this other pattern in this other spot, then they're probably related because they share those patterns. The patterns that they share on the top level show that only these and these locations have this top level relation.
Okay,
and all of these have this lower level relation.
All right, Tom. Okay. Is there any living evidence that you have observed, or can you just hand wave and talk about DNA similarities?
We literally observe the DNA similarities. Yes.
No. Is there a living organism? 8 billion people, 1 million apes. What happened to all your ape men, Tom?
I don't know what you mean. Apes are still around. Like, apes are an ancestor.
Where's our common ancestors? There should be millions of them.
There are.
Really, where?
Just Google it. Common ancestor.
Google it. Okay. And there's photographs or just drawings?
Both. There's photographs of the bones. There are physical bones.
And they're interpreted by many people by many different ways.
I mean,
but you do admit, you're talking about the bones now. Wait. This is my question. You're talking about the bones. Do you admit there's no living evidence that humans and apes have a common ancestor?
There are in our DNA. That's a lie.
In our DNA. That's not what I asked. You're very artful at dodging the question, Tom. What's the living evidence? Birds to reptiles to birds. Are there any alive?
I don't know what you mean by living evidence. So DNA is alive. It's something we observe.
DNA is alive? If my dog dies,
cells are alive. They're made of DNA. It's living. What do you mean by living evidence? It's alive. Yes, the cells are alive.
It's metabolizing. Bless you.
So, what do you mean by living evidence? Yes, there are things you can observe. DNA. It's there. It's in living things.
DNA
cells
is
are
not
alive.
living, Tom.
It's in a living thing. It's in a cell. Cells are alive. So cells are living evidence.
This is my question. Is there a living organism to support your theory?
I don't know what you mean by that. Yes, cells are living organisms. They're made of DNA. They're observable. They support our hypothesis. What do you mean by
the organism that's alive today to support bacteria blue whale evolution?
Cells.
You're tap dancing. You're not even answering. That's not an organism.
I don't know what you mean by the question. Cells are not an organism? Yes, they are. Bacteria made of cells.
Right.
Cells
The bacterium is an organism, but you just can't say cells. But you believe that you have bacterium, you're related to bacteria.
Yes.
And it sounds like it's based on philosophy for me if you can't produce evidence
No,
for
it's
that.
based on observable, testable predictions.
No, not one living organism
Yes.
today supports your theory. It's called genetics and
Every
biochemistry.
single one of them does. We observe every single one of them has DNA patterns that we can follow the markers of exactly the same as we can tell I'm related to my sister or my aunt in the exact same way. We say, oh, look, there's these genetic similarities at this point in the DNA, and it's of these locations that we can tell we're related, and use the exact same method for every single life form. Like, oh, there are these genetic markers in these species at these locations.
You said it 3 times already, but you do admit there's no living organism, so I win.
No, I just there are like
there's
the
no
same
evidence.
living organism. Like there's no common ancestor between me and my sister.
Very good at the words. Very bad.
No.
Whales
so
make
where is the living? Where's the living organism?
Bacteria.
Where is the living organism?
Biochemistry. That's observation.
Where is the living organism between me and my sister? Where's the common ancestor?
Mom and
dad. Parents are dead. So if my parents are dead, there's no living organism. Oh, what do you do?
So
you've got 25 seconds, Bill. We got 25 seconds. So if you want to, that time for one last question or switch to. It's up to you. If you want to ask a last question real quick, Bill, and then let Tom answer it, and then we'll jump into Tom's 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Why are you an atheist?
Because it's supported by the evidence.
And what's the best evidence for that?
The fact that there's no evidence of a God means it's most likely imaginary, due to the fact that every single hypothesis we've come up with starts as imaginary until demonstrated otherwise.
So the human eye is the result of nature with an IQ of 0, or a designer?
Nature.
You have more faith than me,
okay,
and I respect it.
There's no faith. There's no faith there. I didn't say faith at all. So straw man.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for keeping this fun and lively and engaging. We got over 70 people in the chat, so everybody in the chat, make sure to hit that like button. I appreciate the super chats and great questions. Once we do get to the Q&A, guys, we'll get through as many as we can, or else we'll be here for 10 hours. So anyways, let's hand it over to Tom. Tom, you got 5 minutes to cross-examine Bill. Go ahead.
Who is the common ancestor between us and Jesus?
Who is the common ancestor between
who is the living organism common ancestor between us and Jesus?
Well, on the silly scale, that's about a 9.9. I believe
you just pick my great grandparents. So who is the living ancestor, the living organism who is the common ancestor of us and our great grandparents?
Mitochondrial Eve. Have you ever heard of mitochondrial Eve? I know it's your time, but that's my answer.
Is a living organism today that we can observe?
Well, I don't want to take your time with the question, but do you know what about mitochondrial Eve?
Is that a living organism today that we can observe, which is a common ancestor between us and our great grandparents?
Yeah, just like our parents. My parents are dead too.
Is that a living organism common ancestor that we can observe?
It is a common ancestor that is dead
living organism. I'm asking your own silly question. Is that a living organism that we can observe today, which is a common ancestor?
No, but through your love of genetics and mitochondrial DNA, we know that all humans have the same.
So the point here I wanted to make here is asking.
I mean, on one time you're talking about DNA.
My rebuttal is my question time. Bill, stop. My question time. Bill, you're taking up my question time. So the point here I wanted to illustrate is that your silly question about what's a living common ancestor. If it's an ancestor, it's probably dead, because it's like our great grandparents. Like, you can't have a living common ancestor. It doesn't make any sense, Bill. It's dumb. So next question, like.
Their offspring could be alive today, Tom.
Yes, that's fine. We have
They're
that.
Not.
We have that. So next question. Is there a difference between energy and usable energy?
Yes, absolutely.
Available
energy and unavailable energy.
Usable and available are synonyms, Bill. So does energy itself created? Does that have a beginning?
Absolutely. It's called entropy.
Okay. Bill, is entropy the beginning of usable energy or energy itself?
Ah, very good. I believe the ball started at the top of the hill, that at the beginning, we had a lot of available energy, and as time goes on, the ball is rolling down the hill.
Bill, I don't understand. Bill,
let me one sentence. Available energy becomes unavailable.
Okay, but that's not my question, Bill. Again, listen to the question. Bill, is entropy, the second law of thermodynamics, is that a beginning to energy or usable energy?
Available energy.
So did actual energy
unavailable? There was heat. There was
Bill. Did energy itself have a beginning? I'm not talking about usable energy, Bill.
Yes.
Wait, what? So you're saying because of the second law of thermodynamics, which only has to do with usable energy, that all energy had a beginning? Is that, am I understanding? Okay. Oh, all right. I guess you just bite the bullet on that one and admit you don't understand physics, but okay. I mean.
Wait, my friend. Wait, my condescending friend from Minnesota. Unavailable energy is still composed of atoms. Atoms are not eternal. Your Big Bang proponents even teach that. Do you think atoms are eternal, my friend?
So you're saying there's no energy in waves? Like microwaves, radio waves, those don't
matter.
Energy.
It comes from a source that has matter. It doesn't come from your spaghetti monster, Tom.
Wait.
Energy comes from nothing.
Radio waves and microwaves come from matter. Is that right?
Microwaves come from a source, not from nothing.
So like what happened before there were any hydrogen atoms? How did what?
Go ahead.
So in physics, standard physics, atoms can form. They don't just start. There were no atoms, and then atoms formed. So you seem to not really understand how waves, energy isn't just matters. So matter equals energy times mass equals MC, matter times speed of light or whatever.
MC squared.
Yep. So it's energy isn't just matter. It doesn't come from matter. Energy is a field that exists there, and matter comes from that field, not the other way around. So you seem very confused by thinking that energy comes from matter. No, matter is energy.
No, it can.
20 seconds. 20 seconds if you want.
But that's not what I asked.
Energy source.
So I asked, does
you're
energy...
very good at mixing words, very good at philosophy. But
I'm not doing any philosophy. This is just physics. So again, my question was, does thermodynamics, which only has to do with the usable energy, indicate a beginning to the energy itself?
Yes.
Okay, let's allow Bill to answer that question. That'll be the last. Bill, yeah, if you want to just answer that question, and then we'll just transition right into the 15-20 minute dialogue where it's not really as it's a little bit more free-flowing and organic. So go ahead, Bill, answer that last question from Tom, and then I'll set the timer for the last portion, a brief dialogue. So go ahead.
Well, just to repeat again, I already said it. Available energy is like a ball on the top of a hill. Over time, it's going to go downhill and convert available energy to unavailable energy, such as heat. Energy is a function of time. Energy cannot be eternal. Available energy cannot be eternal, Tom. And talk to your physics buddies about that, and they'll agree to you. They'll elbow you in the ribs and say, that Morgan guy was right.
Nope, they're all going to say you're wrong.
Okay.
Because energy.
I know it won't convince you, Tom. Your mind's made up, but
well, you can just ask the first law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, so it is eternal. The second law is that usable energy goes down, but the energy from the first law is eternal, no beginning. Usable energy, sure. Energy, no. I mean, this is basic physics.
So now you're saying usable. I guess we're in our discussion now, right, Donnie?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying usable energy is not eternal, right?
Yes. So usable energy had a beginning.
I win.
Okay, but I never said it was. I said energy is eternal. I didn't say usable energy is eternal.
Well, usable energy is the energy that can do work. That's what you just said. If it was eternal, we would not be able to have it today.
Never my argument, Bill. So I said energy is eternal. I never said usable energy is eternal, Bill. So where's the problem here?
So where did we get the usable energy from?
Vacuum states. So
Vacuum
this so
state.
again, you're not understanding here. So do you not see that you've admitted there's a difference between energy and usable energy?
Oh, I know it.
And you admitted that thermodynamics, the second law, has to do with usable energy. So why do you think energy itself, not the usable energy, do not bring up anything about the falling ball here? Why do you think the energy itself had a beginning? I don't care about the second part. I don't care about the thermodynamics. I care about the energy itself. Why do you think it had a beginning?
Okay, and I this is what I'm going to say. I believe energy and matter is neither created nor destroyed. The second law teaches available energy cannot be eternal. I
Not
know
the
you're
second law.
having your
First
hand,
law. First one.
and I know, and you're going, wait, Bill. The unavailable energy is eternal. You tell me how that unavailable energy made your vacuum states to make available energy. I'm all ears. Go.
Again, not the question here, Bill. So I'm still trying to get, where did the energy itself, if it didn't have a beginning, that means it's eternal, right?
It did have a beginning. I never said that. You're putting words in my mouth.
Wait, I thought you just said that the energy itself was never created or destroyed.
In natural processes.
So it did have a beginning. So
That's
what I'm asking about right there. That's the part I'm asking about.
This is a common ground we can have. Okay. I believe in a supernatural entity. You're going to agree with me here in a second. Can I 100% absolutely prove that? No. But I believe the first law of thermodynamics and the second law of thermodynamics falsifies the atheist position.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking about. This is what
I
I'm
agree
trying
with
to.
you on that. It falsifies your position.
No, I'm trying to get
There's
clarification
nothing
here.
better to explain matter and energy, so I believe your position is falsified.
That's what I'm trying to get some more clarification from you here. So you're saying that the first law of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created or destroyed, but only in a natural sense.
And only in the natural means.
So where did you get that conclusion from? And you're saying that the reason you believe that is because of the second law of thermodynamics?
Yes, they work together hand in hand. And you could talk to the authors of that book if they're still alive. They're probably not, but
they didn't say anything.
Live in the natural world. You throw something out called vacuum states. Are you saying unavailable energy in a vacuum state makes available energy?
Sort of, but
well, you can invent perpetual motion then, Tom. Why don't you do that?
It
eternal energy. Yes. Energy from non-available energy.
Vacuum states is eternal energy. Yes.
I'm speechless. That is one of the weakest things I've ever heard.
Google virtual particles. It's the consensus in physics. Go for it. But I'm still
got energy. You cannot get available energy from your non-available energy.
Well, we literally demonstrated this in a lab where we demonstrated virtual particles do exactly that, where you took two metal slips. I think it starts with a C of some kind. You put two really small metal slips next to each other to see if vacuum states can collapse them, and it does collapse them. So we've demonstrated these exist. We can observe it, just like we can observe
starting with available energy. It's not inert energy.
Not how testable predictions work, Bill. We say if this hypothesis of virtual particles can predict this experiment, and we do the experiment, we see the results. That's how it works, Bill. So right. Your post hoc interpretation isn't relevant here. So, but I still want to go back to your
observational energy shows that it is converted from available energy to unavailable energy. That is observed repeatedly. You are having a dream that unavailable energy in a vacuum state created available energy.
Bill,
this very moment.
Bill, your imagination of the hypothesis is irrelevant to the hypothesis. So you're going to have to actually look at the papers and see what they say, because what you say doesn't matter. So you have to we got to go back. We got to go back to this, Bill. So you're saying that the first law of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created or destroyed ever under any circumstances, no matter what, which is the first law. There's an exception here.
World.
Nope, that's not in the first law. Find me that in any physics book in the fruit. It's not there.
We are in the natural world, Tom.
I don't care, Bill. Where in physics does it add that caveat in?
Okay. Let's leave it at that. Matter and energy is neither created nor destroyed.
Ever, under any circumstances.
It has to, because of the second law, the available energy needed an origin.
Okay. So, Bill, the first law doesn't say the available energy can't be created or destroyed. It says energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Great. Okay.
So the second law has nothing to do with the first law.
It sure does. It has to do with the time element.
Bill, there's no time element in the first law.
I agree. That's why we have the second law.
So they have nothing to do with
Your
one another.
gyrations are not helping your thermodynamics.
Oh, it's helping my Patreon support because we're all just laughing at the hilarity of what you're saying right now. So
now I feel bad. I feel really bad.
Don't. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here because this is great.
I feel so bad I'm being laughed at, but your thermodynamics is awful, Tom.
Well, I haven't said anything about thermodynamics. I'm talking about the first law, not the second laws. So
matter and energy is neither created nor destroyed.
So why do you think that has an exception? Why do you think that's wrong? Why is that law wrong, Bill?
Because of the second law. I even put the slide up by those thermodynamic authors. Do you know more about thermodynamics than those two guys, you think?
Probably, because they died.
Oh, my goodness.
So
pride cometh before a fall, Tom.
Yes, we've made progress since then in science. There's more knowledge now than there was before. So, but I'm what was their quote? What quote did they have that somehow the first law has an exception?
Law.
I didn't say anything. I said, what is it? Why is the first law wrong, Bill?
The first law is true in the natural world, but you have to explain the origin of matter and energy.
Where does that? Where does it say the first law? Energy is not created or destroyed, but only in the natural world. Where is this? Where did you get this information, Bill? I can't find this in any physics books. It doesn't say that. It says matter cannot be created or destroyed. Period. End of sentence. Okay, no exceptions.
It can't be. I don't know how many times we got to say this. 16 times. Energy cannot be eternal. Available energy, Tom, is subject.
I'm not talking about available energy, Bill.
I know you don't want to. I don't blame you for wanting to avoid facts, because facts can be a very inconvenient thing, can they not?
Not really.
Yeah,
not really. I'm not really.
It can be really inconvenient.
So again, you admit there's a difference between energy and usable energy. Those are two different things, correct?
Available energy is what we call it in the profession, right?
Those are synonyms, Bill. So there's a difference between energy and usable energy, right? They're two different things.
One is a subset. Available energy is energy.
Okay.
And then there's unavailable energy. And over time,
unavailable energy.
We are running out of available energy.
I never said that
we are going to face the heat death, as they say.
Is unavailable energy energy?
Because available energy is not infinite.
Bill, time. Is unavailable energy also a kind of energy?
Yes.
So the energy is still there, right? It doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't go. You got the ball at the bottom of the hill. You got to get the ball to the top of the hill, Tom.
Okay, but I didn't say that. So the energy is still there, right?
You're avoiding the ball. What?
Well, I'm trying to get you to actually address my question. Like you're bringing up a second question. So there's two different concepts: energy and usable energy, and non-usable energy. Two separate things there.
Concepts.
Is there a difference between energy and usable energy? Are those two different things?
There's available energy, and there's unavailable energy, and over time, one becomes the other. Okay. Therefore, available energy cannot be eternal, Tom.
I grant that. Yes, available energy cannot be eternal. Okay.
What about energy? Make up this vacuum tubes that you make up vacuum tubes made available energy.
Bill,
even my dog doesn't agree with that.
Bill, the question here was that
the dog's laughing at you. Ha ha.
So available energy is not eternal. Okay. But is energy eternal?
No. I do not believe it.
Okay. So why?
Because
why is this wrong, Bill?
Tommy, unavailable energy still has atoms. Atoms are not eternal. I can't teach you anymore.
There's not going to be any atoms when there's unavailable energy. There's going to be no atoms, Bill.
You believe the energy in an atom is eternal?
Well, yeah, but it's going to diffuse into a wave. So the particle isn't eternal. Okay. The particle is going to dissolve, but the energy is still going to be there. No, it's going to become unavailable, Tom. You're talking out of your buttocks. It still exists when it's unavailable. It's still there. It doesn't. Yes, the energy is still there even when it's unavailable. It doesn't you've admitted this. Work. That's fine. It still exists. See, my dog's laughing at you, Tom. Your Patreon supporters versus my dog. I'm going to go with my dog, and I'm going to go with thermodynamics and the professors
And you got to research that vacuum theory. Nonsense.
Vacuum states.
Okay.
Let me find the experiment for it. No, we've done this. Vacuum states.
Find that paper. Find that theoretical paper there. This is the real world.
Yeah, but yeah, your confusion on the first law, the second law is pretty hilarious. And
Oh yeah.
Also the fact that you didn't know why the sun rising tomorrow doesn't actually count as evidence of a new hypothesis.
Beautiful.
Also something you should.
Well, your belief that unavailable energy made available is sad.
Casimir effect.
It's not just funny. The dog thinks it's funny, but it's sad. But we're digressing.
I'm happy if the dog is laughing too. That means more joy for us all. So yeah, Casimir effect. Casimir effect is the experiment. So again, the two major problems that I've identified in our talk today that I think you should work on is one, trying to understand why predicting things we already know isn't evidence. Like predicting the sun will rise tomorrow no one's going to accept that.
I'm predicting the offspring of every ape, bacteria, zebra, human will be human. That's a prediction. I know you don't like that, but that's a prediction.
The offspring of every ape and chimpanzee
they haven't been seen yet.
And giraffe will be human. Like, okay. Okay.
Humans make humans.
But so the point here is that I think that one thing that not just yourself, but many creationists should look into is understanding why making predictions about things we already know or expect with a high likelihood isn't evidence. No one accepts that as evidence. No one accepts the sun will rise tomorrow as evidence for the same reason no one accepts apes will produce apes as evidence. And I think understanding that fact will really help the creationists to improve their argument. They should probably build a model that can incorporate and explain why people don't accept that as evidence into their epistemology. And secondly,
is there evidence for gravity?
Yes.
Are there new predictions for gravity?
Einstein, well, there were when Einstein made them.
What about today, 2000?
But I don't
use science, Tom. You're playing philosophical word games.
What? So Einstein made a new prediction about gravity that we can observe it bending through black holes and things. We can observe permutations in space-time. So yeah, he made new predictions that no one knew before that we did discover. I don't know if there are any. I don't think there are any novel predictions about a new model yet.
Well, what do you need novel for if this is going to fall? That's science.
If you have a new hypothesis, like if I want to say that Einstein was wrong and there's this new theory of gravity that is better than Einstein's theory, in order to show that I have a better theory than Einstein's, I have to predict something Einstein didn't, right?
Well, truth might not need a better prediction, my friend. Truth might be truth. And science is a pursuit of truth and knowledge. And every offspring supports the creation model. But you reject it because it's not a novel prediction.
Right. So like,
thank you. I win again.
Yeah, I think that's a great representation. Absolutely. I would totally agree with that. So, and the reason is because any hypothesis can explain all of the past data. Like if we see a cup fallen over and I can say, I think that the cup was knocked over by a squirrel and you think the cup was knocked over by a bird or the wind or the table. They can all explain the cup being knocked over, but to know which one was right, or which one is the best explanation, it would have to predict something we don't know yet. Like if I think a squirrel knocked over the cup, and we can know this because when we go and look at the cup, we're going to find squirrel droppings all around the cup. And if we look and we see, there's squirrel droppings, that means that my hypothesis is better than all of the others because it predicted something we don't know yet and got it right. That's the novel part. Like anybody can explain the cup
better that humans can only make humans better than yours because they got 8 billion living pieces of evidence right now.
So if we see 8 billion cups falling over,
it's better than squirrel droppings.
No, that's the cup.
No. Answer my question. Don't go back to the cup.
What was the question?
Is my prediction that humans can only make humans better than yours because that's what we observe.
There's no prediction there. That's again.
There's no prediction except the offspring.
The analogy, the humans come from humans is the cup falling over, and the squirrel droppings is the new thing we need to predict.
No, don't run from my question. Is my prediction better?
It's not a prediction. So
yes, it is because they haven't had kids yet. When you get married, I predict you're going to have a kid, and when you have that happy day, think of me.
No,
I was right.
So again, take the analogy. The analogy is if we see.
You're not going to answer my question. I can tell.
I did. You said, what is the prediction?
Why are you running?
It's not a prediction. So that's the answer. It's not.
Why are you running from my simple question? I'm not talking about predictions.
You asked what was my
evidence.
Prediction was better. Like, is my prediction better than like something about 8 billion humans? Is that prediction better? It's not a prediction. That's the answer. The answer is not a novel prediction.
Is my position better that 8 billion humans all came from humans can only make more humans better than a bacteria to blue whale hypothesis?
No, it's worse, significantly worse, by like a huge margin.
Huge margin.
Huge margin.
Okay, let me jump in here,
Really
Jump.
big.
It's been a lively debate. Definitely want to remember, a lot of fun. The timer went off about a minute ago. I didn't want to stop you guys in mid-sentence, but it kind of looks like you've both concluded your points. So therefore, if it's okay with you, if you guys think it's a good idea, maybe we jump into concluding statements, because we've got 5-minute concluding statements. Got a ton of questions. We'll do about 15 minutes of questions. I'll read off the super chats, get to as many questions as possible, and then we will call it a night. I want to respect both of your times for tonight. So Bill, you started, therefore you get to go first for your concluding statement. I see your screen popping up here, so
all right,
you're good to go.
Yeah.
Good job for both of you. Go ahead.
All right, I don't have my timer, but I'll try to make it 5 minutes. Okay, conclusion. That's a picture of my daughter when she was 2. That's a picture of my daughter when she was 3. As I said earlier, there's been hundreds and hundreds of creation evolution debates. I think we need to examine the fruits of the 2 positions. When my daughter got leukemia at the age of 3, I was enraged, furious, and mad at God. And I fully understand grief, pain, and suffering. I've seen a lot in my day, and I can see how they could lead to a rejection that there is a God. If people are only looking as God as a comforter, a valet, and I'm not putting that down, I can see why people would reject, nope, there can't be a God because of suffering. However, my foundation for belief in God was genetics. Red blood cells, white blood cells are designed, etc. Science was my foundation. And even though I was mad at God, I hung on to my belief. And the wisest thing I did during her leukemia, after a while, I just said, God, may your will be done. You made me, you made my beating heart, you made my breathing lungs. May your will be done. We're going to do all we can with science, medicine, technology, and prayer, but you're in charge, and if she dies, may that be your will. I was never angry at the Creator again after that. I was still stressed out that I would lose her, but my anger subsided. My point is, creation can be a foundation during the storms of grief. Without that foundation, people can fall away and fall deeper and deeper into their grief and suffering. And I have compassion for these people. I'm not being snide. I'm very happy to say that my daughter did survive, but my wife and I went to 12 different funerals during her time at the cancer hospital. And believe me, I understand grief. I understand rage at God, but that doesn't falsify the existence of a God. Okay, so getting back to my dog, 14 million complex hair follicles. I want everybody to think about this. If God cares enough to design the muscles, the oil glands, the arteries, and the veins 14 million times on a dog, does he care about you? Absolutely. God cares about every atom in the universe. He cares about people. I like to say this to people when I'm evangelizing to them. I can give you 2 facts that God exists. Those 2 facts are your eyes. Your eyes are either the product of nature with an IQ of 0, mixing chemicals together over billions and billions of years, or your eyes are the result of a designer with an IQ of infinity. And your eyes need an optic nerve. The optic nerve needs a visual cortex. To me, that screams that there's a designer. Now, I can give everybody 2 facts that God loves you. Your eyes. Your eyes are an amazing gift. When we feel grief, depression, sadness, loneliness, hurt, we should take a step back and be thankful that we have vision, that we have hearing. I know some people don't, but you get my point. We have millions of things to be thankful to for a loving God, even during the times of tribulation. 7 reasons to believe in God. Beauty. Art requires an artist. Let's look at these butterflies. Each one is a beautiful piece of art. They're all made of matter. They're all made of energy. Matter and energy does not come from nothing. They're all living. Life only comes from life. And they're all systems. Systems cannot happen by a step-by-step process. For a system to work, the entire system has to work. 7 more reasons to believe in God. Even more beautiful butterflies. B is the coolest one ever. It has clear wings. So thermodynamics, biochemistry, biology, the law of biogenesis, the cell theory, systems, design, overwhelming evidence that there's a God. So why would people deny God? In my opinion, there's 2 types of people: those who know better and those who don't. Those who know better are, and I say this with respect, like Tom. Tom knows my arguments. He's heard them 100 times, but I believe for emotional reasons, he is rejecting them and not considering it. Then there's people who don't know better. I trusted my biology teacher, and I believe he told me a lie that humans were related to an ape-like ancestor and life started by chance in a Big Bang. So quick review: evidence for the existence of God, the origin of matter and energy, the origin of life. We didn't even talk about the genetic code. Information always comes from a source. Design is information, systems, etc. Every atom is the result of design, in my opinion. So I encourage everybody to ask yourself, is your goal truth? Or is your goal trying to prove what you want to be true? Again, I respect Tom, but I think he's making a lot of effort to fit a square peg into a round hole to try and prove what he wants to be true. And I guess that's time, right?
Yes. But if you want to wrap up in the next 10 seconds, I'll make sure Tom gets equal time. But if you just had a last sentence you wanted to get out within 5 or 10 seconds, go ahead, Bill.
Okay. Well, in order to make this debate unique, atheists have to be aware that the fruits of their belief is causing despair, grief, disappointment, and suicidal thoughts to people who should be thankful and grateful to the God and Creator who made them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill. That was exactly 6 minutes. So thank you so much for that concluding statement. Great debate, guys. Been a lot of fun. Chat's having a great time. Tom, you get equal time for your concluding thoughts, concluding statement. So go ahead, floor is yours.
Cool. Thanks again for inviting me on. Thanks for Bill for coming. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun conversation. So the main problem with the creationist ideology is their epistemology, is that they don't understand what counts as evidence. Like, in order for something to count as evidence, you can't just say the things we already know and say, I can explain the things we already know, like that apes will come from apes or that the sun will rise tomorrow. And this is a really basic thing in philosophy of science. It's pretty much the foundational thing that is in all science, is that you need to tell us something new about the world, a novel prediction, not just a prediction. Like, technically he's correct. Predicting the sun will rise tomorrow is technically a prediction, but in prediction in science refers to something novel, something we don't know or don't expect, something new. And predicting the sun will rise tomorrow is not that kind of a prediction. It's not a novel prediction, and so it's not evidence. And until you can provide that kind of a novel prediction, discovering that if your hypothesis is true, here is some new fact about the world we can discover which we don't know yet, which we've never seen before, then that's what you really need to support your hypothesis. That's what creationists would really need to support their conclusion is true, or that it is reasonable to support more so than biology, just like what Einstein did. Einstein said, yeah, Newton's model predicts that the planets will go around the sun. Yep, it explains that. It got it right every day. We always seen the planets go around in this way, perfectly fine. But he didn't just say, my mind can explain it, therefore I'm right. What he did was he said, mind can explain this other fact that Newton's can't explain. There's this new thing that Newton's doesn't explain, it doesn't see, and then mind can explain that. All of the models predict apes will come from apes. Every single evolutionary model says that. Every single evolutionary model says humans will come from humans. But they've been explaining something else that the creationist model can't explain, which is the patterns in the DNA. Why do the patterns in the DNA match between species? Why do we see these fossils at these locations? Why do we see these relationships between ring species? Evolution can explain all of that and millions of other things that creationists doesn't have any explanation for. And they explain these things before we knew them. They made predictions about these things. They said, if it's the case that everything in life is produced by evolution, then we'll see these things that we don't know yet. And oh my God, we discovered it. All of them, all of Darwin's predictions were true before he actually saw them. He predicted them. That's what real evidence looks like. And that's what creationists don't have. All they have is predicting the things we already know and claiming that they're special. Because, oh, look, a cup fell over, or 8 billion cups fell over. I can explain that as the wind. That's nice. Do you make any novel predictions? Because if not, you got nothing. And I will conclude there.
Okay, thank you, Tom, for that concluding statement. And once again, thanks to the both of you. Great debate. It's already been an hour and a half, so time has flown by, and we are going to get to as many of these questions as we can. I'll put a timer so we're not here all night, and why don't we let's get this party started. So here we go. Super chat from George Bond all the way at the beginning of the day. Super chat, $10. I appreciate it, George. As I always say, you're putting my kids through college. So he says, join me for pizza and beer. So I guess George is planning a wild night. So thanks for the super chat, George. Mitchell, $5 super chat. Thank you so much, just to show his support. So I appreciate that. Let's see this question from Mandel Mania. So question for both. Ask them both why they presuppose that evolution and creation are not compatible. Since the question is for both of you, whoever wants to start can do so, or answer first.
They are compatible. Like, you can have a being who created the universe in the Big Bang and then just have it result in evolution. There's no incompatibility between creation and evolution. There's just no reason to believe it. So, like, for example, I could say there's a magical leprechaun that created the universe and it just farted it, like in Family Guy or whatever. And that's perfectly compatible with everything we see. Like the universe could have been created 5 minutes ago by leprechauns. That's perfectly compatible with everything we see. There's infinitely many ways that all of the evidence we have is compatible with infinitely many other theories. It's called the problem of underdetermination in science. So yeah, all of the evidence is compatible with infinitely many hypotheses. But the reason we believe one over the other is because it can tell us something about the world that we didn't know yet. So it gave us knowledge before we discovered it. That's the one we go with. And that's why we go with the atheistic naturalistic hypothesis, because it's the one that does that. And none of the creationist models do. But yeah, it's perfectly compatible to have a creationist God who created the universe, and then evolution happened as a process. Perfectly fine.
Okay, my turn. I don't know much about leprechaun.
Yes, go ahead, Bill. Thanks for that.
The farts of a leprechaun can be your area. But the most important part is to define evolution. The word evolution means change. Do I believe in change? What type of change are you talking about? Most evolutionists, including Darwin and Origin of the Species, talked about what is referred to as microevolution. Birds with a different type of beak, people getting taller, the bacteria mutating. That's microevolution, because the bacteria, if it mutates, is still bacteria. People getting taller, they're still people. The finches with the different types of beaks, they're still finches. So I have no problem whatsoever, of course, with microevolution, which is change within a kind. You can breed dogs. There's over 200 breeds of dogs. I have no problem with that. But macroevolution is the belief that humans are related to bacteria. Now, I do not believe, and if I get hit by lightning, I'm here by myself. So I believe even God with an IQ of infinity could not create through a step-by-step evolutionary process, because this dog, we'll use my dog, is a system. If she got here by evolution, what evolved first? The circulatory system, the respiratory system, the nervous system, the digestive system? No, for this living system to exist, it has to be created instantly with the whole system in place. So I don't believe that God created a digestive system on a Monday, circulatory on a Tuesday, nervous system on a Wednesday. And I see Tom tilting his head like that, but it's not that hard to comprehend. A living system, to be living, needs all the systems working. So if God could not do it by a step by step, step-by-step process. Nature with an IQ of 0 certainly couldn't make a living system where the dog has all kinds of systems required for it to be alive. So to me, it is incompatible to think that God created through evolution. If God wanted to create a whale, he'd create a whale. He wouldn't create bacteria, jump in the nucleus, rearrange it, jump out, etc. You guys get my point. If Tom was paid to build the space shuttle, he wouldn't start with a little red wagon and keep tweaking it. He would go right to the red wagon. And I believe that is logical in science to believe that God made the dog as a dog, not as a descendant from a single cell organism.
Just to clarify, you said it's impossible for even a god to create a step-by-step process to produce life?
For a system like a dog with circulatory, digestive, immune, absolutely. They all have to be there at once. The neutron needs the proton,
Okay,
needs the
guys.
electron of the system.
Well, guys, thank you for your answers on that question. So thanks for that question. Next comes in from Mitchell, $10 super chat. So Mitchell, thanks so much for the support. You guys are the life and blood of this channel, so I appreciate it. Question is for TJump. So he asks, you said that creationists don't know how evidence works during this debate. Can you then tell me how dark energy is an evidentiary force to create anything without observation?
Dark energy doesn't create anything. It moves, stops farther away. So dark energy is the fact. It's not a thing that it's just a placeholder. So there's a phenomenon we observe, which is galaxies are moving further away faster and faster. They're increasing in speed. And we don't know what's causing that. So we place a label on it called dark energy. Dark just means we don't know what it is. So it doesn't create energy. It doesn't create anything. It's just an undiscovered phenomenon that we see in the world that we don't know what's causing it.
Thank you for that response there, Tom. As always, we always allow a response from the other debater. Bill, if you had something you wanted to say or add to it.
I think maybe the most pertinent response would be during Tom's opening, or maybe it was the rebuttal. He talked about direct evidence. And then later he talked about indirect evidence, and they both exist. And I would say that there appears to be indirect evidence of dark matter, that not everything that we conclude is directly observed.
And since the question was for Tom, you get the last word if you wanted to make a comment or two.
No, I agree with everything he said, except he said dark matter instead of dark energy. But yeah, I mean, there is both direct. We don't have evidence of dark matter being a thing. It's a phenomenon. So there's something going on, and we don't know what it is. So we just label it dark matter. It's not. We don't actually know if it's matter or wave. We have no idea what it is. Same with dark energy. We don't know what it is. We just know there's something happening there. So. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely indirect evidence of it for sure.
Okay, gentlemen. Well, thanks for keeping this fun. Let's move on to the next question. Question here from Jamie Russell. Question for nobody is specified, but I think it's for you, Tom. So question is, so you make inferences about similarities. Still waiting for a verification of common ancestry. What is predicted in a novel way?
Those things were predicted in a novel way. So the similarities in DNA that we would find if we looked in different species across the world were predicted before we saw them. So we didn't know it.
Thank you, Tom.
And then we said, if they're related, we'll find these same markers in the same location in the DNA. When we looked and we saw them. So those were predictions because we didn't know about them before we predicted them.
And quick response, Bill?
I'll start with a little sigh. Well, in the past, people, and there's nothing wrong with this, are learning more and more about DNA. They didn't make beautiful, great predictions. They thought most of the DNA was junk, that the parts that didn't code for proteins was useless. And of course, now we know that it's structurally important and it orchestrates the proteins like a band conductor orchestrates the instruments. So from Tom's answer, it made it seem like, yeah, 50 years ago, we knew all this about DNA and we predicted it. To me, that sounds like a self-fulfilling prophecy, perhaps, because people are learning more and more about DNA. John Sanford, who invented the gene gun, says every 3 months we got to throw out something we knew for certain in genetics. And as we learn more and more about genetics, we learn about the complexity, which supports the design argument and falsifies the nature of an IQ of 0 argument.
Well, thank you for that response, Bill. Tom, it was your original question. Therefore, if you'd like, you can have the last word.
Sure. So the fact that we make new predictions doesn't mean that we didn't make old predictions. I think that was his argument. Like, yeah, we made predictions before and those predictions were right. And then we made new predictions and those predictions were right. That's how models change. That's why we need new predictions. So we have a new prediction, which is then confirmed, which supports a new hypothesis, which then invalidates the old hypothesis. So, but that doesn't mean that the old predictions were wrong. We still, so I don't really understand what he said there, or why somehow the amount of junk information, which doesn't mean non-functional, it just means doesn't produce proteins, has anything to do with the correct predictions that there were certain patterns that we find across species. That prediction is still correct today.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom. Thanks again, gentlemen. So next question from Mosh, MYYM. Thanks for your question, Mosh, for TJump. So question is, where is the observable data showing ape-like creatures can transform over time into human beings? What scientists have seen these changes and where is it documented? Tom, go ahead. Take your time.
It's in DNA. We've seen them in a lab in literally hundreds of thousands of different experiments that all make novel predictions about changes in DNA and why they occur in reproduction and what will happen if it occurs over long periods of time. Like, we see them all the time. It's pretty much the entire field of biology. It's the foundation of everything in biology. It's all observed and tested every day all over the world.
Thank you for the response, Tom. And Bill, if you had a couple comments to make, go ahead.
I hope this isn't taken the wrong way, but years ago I did a mock debate as the evolutionist, and I remember leaving the hall. I felt dirty. I felt unclean, that I said all these word type things, but I knew in my heart there wasn't one piece of observational evidence to support what I said. If I was an atheist, I would really be agonizing that there's not one transitional form of an ape man to a human. There should be millions of them. Why did they all go extinct? Why aren't there living transitional forms between a reptile and a bird, a fish and an amphibian? They don't exist. It's almost like there was a rapture of all their evidence. I say they don't exist because they never existed, and biochemistry teaches us they never could exist, where the evolutionist has to hand wave and says, oh, well, it's in the DNA. Well, that's fantasy and that's wishful thinking.
Thank you, Bill. And Tom, last word.
It's this thing he mentioned earlier called indirect observation. Like, we don't literally need to see the common ancestors that lived 1,000 years ago that are now dead. We can see the consequences of if they did exist, like the neutrinos. Like he already admitted, you can have indirect observation. So the indirect observation is the consequence of those things is that there's these patterns in DNA, just like the consequence of neutrinos is this pattern of bubbles in the soup thing. So it's exactly the same observable science.
All right, thanks. Let's move right on to this next question in the form of a super chat. Mitchell, thanks again for your super chat, $5. He asks if an unobservable force such as dark energy is a creative force, how then can you conclude an intelligent force such as God can't be a factor? Tom, I'm guessing that question's for you.
Yeah, so dark energy is not a creative force. We don't know what dark energy is. We don't even know if it is a force. It's just a phenomenon in the universe. We don't know what it is. It's just there's something happening over there. We don't know what it's causing it. We call it dark energy. Secondly, we don't conclude God it can't be a factor. That's not a thing in science. We do anything could be a factor. Magical leprechauns could be a factor. What we do is we say there's infinitely many ways to explain every phenomenon. Like the universe could have been created 5 minutes ago by leprechauns or fairies or unicorns or infinitely many things. We say that the theory that makes predictions is the best one. And so that it is the one that you should believe over all others, and all others are most likely imaginary. So because of the naturalistic hypothesis makes the testable predictions, which are confirmed, it's the best hypothesis, and all the other ones, because they don't, are imaginary. So like if I said, look at the cup that was knocked over, my hypothesis is a squirrel did it. So we'll see squirrel droppings, and we find squirrel droppings. Your hypothesis that a god knocked it over or that leprechauns did is imaginary. It's something in your imagination because there's no evidence for it. It's one of the ones that didn't make testable predictions. So that's how we rule out the God hypothesis, is that there's infinitely many imaginary ways we can explain it, and it's one of those.
Okay, thanks for that response. And once again, Mitchell, thanks for the super chat. Bill, if you had something to say to that, go ahead.
I sure do. We're talking about observable evidence. So let's talk about the eye in a high school classroom. The teacher can talk about how the eye works. How is a science question? Okay. Now, a why question would be philosophical, like how the eye got there. One side could be natural explanations. Tom could take the side, well, quarks happen by chance, protons happen by chance, electrons happen by chance, neutrons happen by chance. By chance, the atoms got together. By chance, they got together. They made a molecule. They made a cell. And over millions of years, they made an eye with an iris, pupil, retina, cornea, an optic nerve, a visual cortex. That chance over billions of years made the eye, comma. I think Tom said he wouldn't deduce. I'm not saying Jesus Christ is Lord. Then the teacher could say, but other people believe that the eye is a result of design, that the pupil, the iris, the retina, the cornea, the optic nerve, the atom, the cells, and molecules are the product of design. Here's my question. I have no problem if in the schools they taught that some people believe there's a designer and said, you guys can decide who it is on their own. But all they teach is the atheist worldview that every atom happened by chance, made a molecule, made a cell, and even if they could, it became a living organism. Tom, are you opposed to even mentioning that some people believe there's a designer behind the human eye?
Why would we mention that other people have other beliefs? I mean, the point of the science class is to show what we have evidence for. So if you presented evidence for the God that was a novel testable prediction, then we could teach God in the classroom. Like, I'd be happy with that. But we're only allowed to teach things in the classroom that have made novel testable predictions.
Can you present evidence of how an atom came to be, how protons, neutrons, electrons were formed and made an atom? Be careful.
Yes.
No, you can't.
Yes.
No, you can't. You are lying. Are you lying or ignorant? And I say that
large hadron collider. We can break them apart, so we can show
we
how
can
to
break them
together.
apart. No.
Yes.
Make the atoms.
So the way reverse engineering works is like, how do you show evidence how the car was made? Well, you take it apart and you show how the pieces work together. It's the same thing.
Two horses going in the opposite direction. Breaking them apart is not teaching how they come together. Research that if you want to be an honest person.
That's reverse engineering is a thing. Google it.
Break apart the atom. They're not putting Humpty Dumpty back together again.
The reverse engineering is when you break something apart to learn how it was put together. That's literally what it means.
No, you can learn the parts that make it. You cannot explain how they put it together. Do you understand how they teach atoms came to be?
They formed from the energy states in the universe. So like there was very small fluctuations that was all plasma, and the plasma then formed when it cooled to hydrogen atoms, and the hydrogen atoms built into stars, and the stars compressed them into larger atoms, and then the stars exploded and made even larger atoms.
And the creation of these atoms is observed, right?
Large Hadron Collider. Like we make what's it called? Fission and fusion reactors that literally do put them together, fusion, and take them apart.
Fusion is joining atoms that already exist. They're not making the atom. I'm talking about proton, neutron, electron.
Proton, neutron, electron. So those are made by gluons. Those are made by gluons. Gluons and bosons, which are just smaller kinds of things.
Well, the quarks made the protons, and The temperature had to cool before the electrons come, in theory. But anyways, I think we made our points. But it's not observed. You're saying yours is observed. I'm saying neither one is observed. Of whether the eye is a design or nature pushed a bunch of chemicals around and made an eye.
Right. We have indirect observation called non-testable predictions.
Wrong.
Okay. Why don't we okay, and once again, guys, thanks for keeping these questions fun. We are on the 2-hour mark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to well, this isn't really a question. This is a super chat that came in, and I think it's just more of a comment towards something you guys were discussing at some point in the debate. I can't remember now. Maybe you'll remember. He also gives a $5 super chat. He says, TJump, Moses exists. Does that ring a bell?
That was nothing in this debate, but Moses did not exist. No, all the evidence, the consensus in history is that Moses was a fictional character. Or maybe it was the last debate. Was it the last debate that we talked about this? Yes, I think that's what he's referencing. In the previous debate, I think we brought this up. Yeah, Moses did not exist. The consensus in history is that Moses never existed.
Or is there no evidence that he existed?
Okay. The consensus is he did not exist. He is a fiction.
That's different. You said he didn't exist. That means you know everything, right?
No.
That's what you said. He didn't exist.
Well, I can say Santa Claus doesn't exist, and I don't need to know with certainty because we have good evidence he does not exist.
We're not talking about Santa Claus.
We are. They're both fictional characters.
Okay. Good luck with that.
Okay, let me I'm gonna end with this one because I've got a question here from Question Authority and Stay Healthy. We got a ton of questions, and I apologize if I couldn't get to yours. Like I said, if we asked every question, we'd be here all night, and we're just hitting the 2-hour mark. So we'll end it with this one. Like all the other questions, Tom. So I appreciate you being a good sport. Every question was for you, so that's awesome. You guys kept this fun. Question, Tom: do you believe the purpose of human life is to procreate and survive? If so, then is it possible to determine that human life has more value than animal life?
No, I think the purpose of life is happiness. I do not think any version of consciousness is more valuable than any other version of consciousness. In my model of morality, all conscious things are equally as valuable and should all have the same rights if we had enough resources to do it. So like if I was a god, I'd make all conscious things essentially invulnerable. So no one could impose on there could be no involuntary position of will on any conscious thing. And I'd prevent all immoral actions from occurring. Essentially that would be the way I would design the universe. And so I think all life is valuable. Vegans are right.
I appreciate that answer there, Tom. Bill, if you had a
very good question, in my opinion. God could have created us in cells and locked us up so nobody could interact and hurt each other, but he created us with free will. So I'm glad we have that God and not Tom. No offense, Tom. But when I go evangelizing to people, I'll often ask them, what is the purpose of life? And I think Tom said to be happy. And I'm not a know-it-all. I'm not an expert in anything, but I like to tell people, don't ever try to be happy. Be thankful for what you do have, and a result of that is you will be happy, because happiness can come in many forms. Tom could stick a bunch of heroin in his arm, and he could be really happy for 2 hours. Or he could drink a bunch of Jack Daniels and be happy for 2 hours. Or he could meet some sweetheart and be happy for a couple hours, but there's long-term consequences to that pursuit of happiness. Short-term happiness can destroy and ruin your life. I believe the whole purpose of life, and this might sound convenient, I don't know the word, is to go to heaven. That's why we have suffering in this planet. If we have a loving God, and I do believe we do, this can't be the only life, because if this was the only life, I would say it's a sadistic, mean God, because of suffering and pain and grief that many of us have gone through, some more than others. But if he is a loving God and we're going through grief and pain, there has to be life after this. And I believe this whole life is a trial to see who those will seek God and who those will deny God. And as we all know, the Bible says those who deny him, he'll deny them when it comes to judgment. So the purpose of life, I believe, is to go to heaven. Don't try to be happy. Be thankful. And then happiness will be the fruit of that.
Thank you for that response, Bill. And Tom, if you wanted to have a final word, because it was your question, and then I think we're just going to wrap it up with some final thoughts. And yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, sure. So I just say I can give you free will and suffering and everything that God does, but just make it optional. So I can do everything God did and better, just add one extra rule. So like I can't fly right now, but I still have free will. So you just add in this extra thing that just like I can't fly, I can't harm other people. Just add that one extra law to the universe and poof, you have a magically better universe that's infinitely more moral than this universe. So we could just design the world in a much better way if we're an all-powerful being and just make it so that there's no involuntary imposition of will, just like no one can fly. It's not hard. It doesn't restrict our free will. It doesn't stop suffering. Suffering can be optional. You could turn it off and on like a switch, and that would be fine too. That would be better. And for drugs, the consequences are also optional. Like if in the future, we'll be able to take as much drugs as we want and have no physical consequences, and that'll be even a better world too. So the fact that there are consequences that we didn't consent to is actually more immoral. Like why wouldn't God just allow us to take drugs if we want to? If we chose to, without having consequences like that. The fact that there are consequences to doing fun things is itself immoral. Like what moral monster would do that? So yeah, I mean, I think clearly if the Christian God did exist, it'd just be a moral monster. That's obviously wrong.
All right, gentlemen. Well, like I said earlier, great debate, lively, engaging. 2 hours has flown by. Everybody in the chat has had a good time. Looks like there's an after party on Otangelo Grasso's channel. So anybody who wants to continue the discussion, head on over to Otangelo's channel, which I believe is the God Talk. If you want to clarify that, Otangelo, go ahead in the chat. So once again, thanks so much, Bill. Thanks so much, Tom, for giving us your time for this important debate. Why don't we have some final words, final thoughts, if you want to plug your channels or whatever you guys want. The floor is yours. Why don't we start with Bill, since you started us off with your opening statement. Thanks again for being here. Always a pleasure. Bill, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Donnie. The debate is much more than just conflicting views of science. It has to do with worldviews. And I do believe the consequences of evolution dominating our schools and society is many, many hurting, desperate, depressed people and kids. And that's a shame because we all have a lot to be thankful for, no matter how much we're going through. But the young people and the adults are not being taught who to be thankful to. So they try to numb the pain with drugs, alcohol, more money, better Lexus. And it's just like a hamster on the wheel. Short-term fun, long-term disaster. But God bless you all. Thank you, Donnie.
God bless you as well. Thanks again for those final words, Bill. It's always a good time. So Tom as well, thanks for coming back on here again. Some final words.
Yeah, thanks, Standing. Thanks, Bill. It was a fun conversation. Enjoyed it. Nice to see you guys again. I do like the tie, by the way. That is a very nice tie, Bill.
I got it at Goodwill for $2.
Nice.
I'm jealous, Bill. I'm jealous.
I do. I'm a big fan of the vertical, the
deal.
slanty line ties. I really like those a lot. So, and the blue color is very nice. So.
That's the ball rolling down the hill. Keep the energy, Tom. Hopefully you turn it to the truth. But God bless you, Tom.
All right, guys.
Yeah, Spaghetti Monster bless you too.
I'm hungry.
Thanks for the smiles. Thanks for the laughs. Good way to end it. Laughter is the best medicine. We can all get a little passionate during these debates, but it's nice that we shake hands when they're done. Last thing I'll say, next week, we've got the big debate that everyone's been waiting for. On the 24th, Professor David McQueen and Jordan from Reasons to Doubt. 6 p.m. in the EST, they'll be debating, is there evidence for accelerated nuclear decay? So make sure you are there for that one. And thanks again to Bill and Tom. And head on over to Otangelo's after show if you guys are interested. So Standing for Truth is out.
Thank you, Tom.